And so we'll crank it up. I want to tell you this right off the front, right up front. I think this is a very, very, very good hire for LSU football. I think Lane Kiffin is a phenomenal offensive mind and football coach. And there is too much that has gone into the last month for me to do it in a 12-minute segment. We've got to break this out into different iterations, and I want to keep my thoughts in order. So with that being said, I'm going to get to the result of this hire in our next segment. 15 minutes from now, we'll talk about Lane Kiffin at LSU, what he is as a coach, and what that means for the future of LSU football. But there also is a piece to this story that is the process by which we got here. And I want to talk about that too. So I'm going to split them up. And there is some negative on both sides of this process, but I want to be clear up front. I'm not being negative about the hire. The result of this hire is very, very good. It's the guy I wanted from the start. So as I kind of wind through the process and some of the things I didn't like, don't misconstrue that as Hunt saying, well, Hunt's just a pessimist. Well, the good stuff is coming, and there's good stuff here. But the result is good. The process from my end and what I know was a little bit messy on both sides, and that's part of this story. So we'll start there. This begins with Brian Kelly's exit. Scott Woodward fires Brian Kelly, okay? And then we know what happened in the days that followed. The governor got on a microphone, started saying outlandish things, and then Scott Woodward got forced out, and I didn't like the way that looked. I thought that the reasoning behind Scott Woodward's termination was disingenuous. I thought it was a little bit embarrassing for the state. I did not like that. You want to fire an athletic director because his football coach fails? I've always been good with that. But I didn't think trying to pin it on some contract and some hypothetical payment that the taxpayers were going to make to Brian Kelly was ludicrous. And I didn't like that part. And then you had the days that followed where you had Verge Osbury put in as interim athletic director. And I said, well, that's okay because Verge has been here. He's been through a lot of coaching searches. I think he's qualified for this job, but can he go hire a coach if he's not the guy that coach is going to be working for in the future? And you couldn't cement Verge because you were trying to work through the board of supervisors. And then you hired a new president who's in charge of the board of supervisors. And then he said, well, Verge is the acting AD. I can't make a decision on that, even though he said he had already made it. And so you got that confusion. And this is all part of that process. But then I said, I didn't like that process. I didn't like the way Scott was let go. I didn't like the way that the president came in and said Verge was permanent and then said he was acting. That didn't look good. But then you made Verge permanent. And I said, okay, that's good because Verge is qualified for this. He's been here for 3 decades. He's been on a lot of coaching searches. He's an LSU guy. He loves LSU. He's a football guy. He knows a lot of agents. He knows a lot of coaches. Okay, that's good. Put the committee together. Go. Okay, so I didn't like that process, but we got where we needed to get. And so then you got to go find a coach, okay? So you lock in on Lane Kiffin, and LSU does a great job. Due diligence, contact with the coach, making sure that he was comfortable with his family here, with his son here playing football, understanding what this would be in terms of resources for players and resources for assistants, and what LSU can offer. And they did a great job of courting Lane Kiffin in that way. And then you get to decision time. And as I've been saying for 2 weeks, it's evident to me that Lane Kiffin's leaving Ole Miss because you're in the middle of what should be the greatest month of his coaching career, where you're beating Oklahoma. And you come back and you beat Mississippi State, and you're a playoff team. And through all of this, he doesn't sign the extension. He never says that he's staying. He leaves the door open for leaving. And all of those actions spoke so loudly that all the non-answers in the press conference, I'm going, well, this guy's going to go. And I don't believe that Lane Kiffin had to wait until Friday or Saturday to make that decision. I believe he made that decision. And I believe it's a reasonable decision. There are some people in the football world that think it's unreasonable to leave a playoff team. I think it is a reasonable decision to leave a playoff team if you think that is a better opportunity for you. I'm not telling you what's a better opportunity. I'm telling you it's okay if you think it's a better opportunity to go. And at that point, Lane Kiffin needed to go. And the fact that it drug, I don't think was handled very well by Lane Kiffin. It is a reasonable expectation. It's not expectation. It's a reasonable sentiment for Lane Kiffin to want to coach his team in the playoff. He recruited them. He built that team. He built that program. He got to this point. He wants to coach them. It's not realistic. It's not realistic for Ole Miss to allow LSU's head football coach to roam the halls for a month while every single player that has eligibility left is about to be a free agent and all those coaches could leave with him. You can't let the fox in the hen house for a month if you're Keith Carter and Ole Miss. You have to tell him you have to move on. And in my opinion, Lane Kiffin at that point should have said, okay, I'm going. You got to pack your bags. You got to leave your key on the desk in Oxford, and you got to go to Baton Rouge, and you got to start working. That's the way the calendar sets up. You just have to. And you can't strong-arm Ole Miss and say, well, I'm coaching. And you can't strong-arm Ole Miss and say, well, I'm taking the whole staff. Like, I don't believe that's a professional way to act. I think if Lane Kiffin made his mind up to go to LSU, he needs to go to LSU. And finally, he did. And then you've got the Ole Miss side, which I'm not going to spend very much time on this, but like Keith Carter just kind of sat there. And I understand the awful position that he was put in, but you've got to go to Lane Kiffin and say, I need a decision because I've got to move forward with my football program if I don't have one. And then you've got Lane who ultimately didn't. And so for me, like this process had a lot of snags and a lot of people that may not have done the right thing every step of the way. But I've said this in so many instances with coaching searches. The process and the result don't have to mirror each other. LSU's hiring of Brian Kelly was a masterclass in terms of just getting it done. You targeted a guy, he was at a great spot, you went and got him. Like, that's a great coaching search. It didn't work. You've seen disastrous coaching searches. Texas A&M hired Mark Stoops. He's on a plane to College Station. The internet said, don't do that. So they went, whoa, we're not doing that. Oh, Mike Elko, come on. Well, that seems to be working out okay. Disastrous process. Like, Alabama's first choice was Rich Rodriguez. And he said, no, I'm staying in West Virginia. So they went and got Nick Saban. Well, that's not exactly a perfectly executed search. It worked out really well. And in this case, like, I think LSU struggled to get its ducks in a row. Like, that wasn't a very good look. And they got their ducks in a row, and then I think they did a wonderful job on the search. And Lane Kiffin, I think, surveyed his options and was coaching and did a great job coaching. And then I think he was a little bit out of line at the end. I think it's okay to want to coach that team. It's not realistic. And at that point, he needed to tell Keith Carter, I'm leaving. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been great. Hope y'all go get it. And then you move on to LSU. But all of that being said, where I said there's some issues here, there's some issues there, what ultimately matters is not the process. What ultimately matters is the result. And when you look at this coaching carousel and you look at what everybody was doing, if you look at Hunter Yurachek in Fayetteville, you look at Scott Strickland down in Gainesville, you look at Keith Carter in Oxford, you look at John Cohen in Auburn, and if all these reports are mirroring the truth, like Arkansas got the scraps. They got the leftovers. Auburn wanted Eli Drinkwitz, but John Cohen was demanding that, hey, DJ Durkin's going to be on this staff, and Drink went, I don't think so. Florida thought they were getting Lane Kiffin. They were all in on Lane Kiffin. And then Ole Miss was too late to go get John Summerall, who probably wanted that job. Everybody's kind of making missteps, and LSU executed. LSU got the belle of the ball. That does not mean that this is going to work out the best for LSU because these things are uncertain. But LSU's group did the best job in this coaching carousel. And they didn't have to go down and get a hopeful G5 guy. They didn't have to dip down to go get a coordinator who'd never done it before. They didn't have to emergency rush somebody to the podium, which we've seen in this town before. They found a target, and they went and got him. And that result was fantastic for LSU. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.